It's easy to think that we're all done at this point once we get to this Sunday, right? We went through 6 weeks of Lent, we got through Holy Week, last Sunday was beautiful, and now it's this Sunday. We ate together in the upper room, we cried together at the place called Golgotha, we gasped together upon seeing the empty tomb. We're finished, right? Jesus is not dead, resurrection happened, what more do we need? But you know what I need? I need to be reminded that the disciples' faith was tested long after the stone was rolled away. I need to know that it wasn't all puppies and roses when they saw the tomb empty. I need to know they were experiencing heart palpitations, wondering where the body went, and if the things Jesus taught were actually true. I need to know that the disciples were just as human as you and me. Even though Easter Sunday is that mountaintop experience, this Sunday, often deemed Low Sunday, is just as vital. Today is where things get gritty. Today's the day the shock sets in. 3 days ago, the disciples saw their radical carpenter turned prophet crucified. Now they are locked behind closed doors. They aren't just grieving, they're terrified. They know the political and religious authorities are looking for someone to blame for the missing body. Violence was the order of the day. If you threatened the empire, you threatened control. The Roman Empire preferred crucifixion because it was a public display of terror. Watching someone essentially suffocate was a far more effective tool of fear than a quick stoning. Violence and fear are still tools of the empire today. We see it in the shadow of a war with Iran, where the rhetoric of destruction keeps us in a state of constant anxiety. We see it in the stories of ICE unlawfully detaining people, neighbors and family members snatched away to instill a level of fear that paralyzes a community. These are modern day crucifixions meant to show us who is in control. I think of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in these moments. In the journal Christian Century, Ayanna Johnson Watkins references a scene from the movie Boycott. Dr. King and E.D. Nixon stand before Nixon's home as it burns to the ground. White supremacists set the fire, and the white firefighters simply lean against their trucks and watch it burn. Nixon asks King how he can stick to nonviolence when they are being physically destroyed. King doesn't answer directly. Instead, he quotes the book of Hebrews. But we do not belong to those who shrink back and are destroyed, but to those who have faith and are saved. Watkins then writes, our faith is not meant to keep us from responding to the violence. Our faith is the response. We believe that God is honored by our resistance to injustice, that God is pleased when we refuse to submit to fear. And this is exactly what we see in our reading from Acts this morning. Remember, the Peter we see and hear in Acts 2 is the same Peter who was cowering in the locked room just days before, but something changed. Peter stands up and addresses the very crowd and the very authorities who could have killed him. He says, Jesus of Nazareth, you crucified and killed by the hands of those outside the law, but God raised him up, having freed him from death. Peter isn't shrinking back anymore. He's looking the empire in the eye and saying, you did your worst, and God did better. Peter quotes David, King David, saying, my heart was glad and my tongue rejoiced. Moreover, my flesh will live in hope. This is a tested faith. It is a faith that has looked at the burning house of the crucifixion and refused to turn back to violence or hate. When Jesus enters that locked room, he offers words of peace not once, but twice. This was his code phrase. This peace is not a pious dream, but a touch with reality. As D. Cameron Murchison writes, this peace supplies courage, specifically when we fear that hatred is winning. The one who offers this peace is the one who has endured the brunt of the world's chaos and stood again. We see this tested faith in Thomas. Thomas wasn't a doubter in a negative sense. He was a man who needed to know that the one standing among them now was the same one who stood among them then, scars and all. Thomas asked our questions for us. He needed to know that resurrection doesn't erase the struggle, it overcomes it. A tested faith is not about winning or losing or vying for control. It is about knowing that hope endures. Whether it is the fear of international conflict, the injustice of detention centers, or the personal walls we build around our hearts, we are called to stand with love, accountability, and this moment be a witness, much like Peter. We do not belong to those who shrink back. We belong to the risen Christ. We look at the world's violence and we offer the only response that truly saves. Peace be with you, my friends. Amen.